Have you ever heard someone say, he went to bed feeling perfectly fine and never woke up? It's one of the most heartbreaking phone calls a family can receive. What's even more shocking is that many people who suffer a heart attack or stroke during the night had been living with warning signs for months or even years without realizing what their body was trying to tell them. Maybe it was the loud snoring everyone joked about. Maybe it was waking up exhausted, even after 8 hours in bed. Maybe it was high blood pressure that never seemed to come under control. Or maybe it was something so common that most people simply blamed it on getting older. Here's the truth. Your body rarely goes from healthy to a medical emergency overnight. More often, it whispers before it screams. And if you know what those whispers sound like, you have a chance to act before they become something far more serious. Today, we're going to uncover one of the most overlooked nighttime dangers linked to heart health, the 7 warning signs you should never ignore, and a simple bedtime routine that may help protect your heart while you sleep. And I promise you, the last recommendation is the one many cardiologists wish more people followed. So stay with me. A few years ago, a man we'll call Michael walked into his granddaughter's birthday party carrying a giant pink gift bag. He laughed. He grilled burgers in the backyard. He played hide and seek with the kids. He teased his son about his golf swing. To everyone around him, he looked healthy. Sure, he'd gained a little weight over the years. His wife complained about his snoring. His doctor had mentioned his blood pressure a few times, but Michael always had the same answer. I feel fine. That evening, he kissed his wife goodnight, turned off the bedroom lamp, and went to sleep. The next morning, she reached over to wake him. He never responded. Now, I want to be careful here. No one can say that one habit or one condition caused Michael's death. Heart disease is complicated. Age, family history, smoking, diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, and many other factors all play a role. But when doctors reviewed his health history, they found several warning signs that had been quietly building for years. Signs that were ignored. Signs that many people dismiss every single day. That's why this conversation matters. Because Michael's story isn't unique. Millions of Americans are living with the very same warning signs right now. The difference is, they still have time to do something about them. Let me ask you a few quick questions. Has anyone ever told you that you snore so loudly they can hear you from another room? Do you wake up feeling like you barely slept? Do you need 2 or 3 cups of coffee just to get going in the morning? Have you ever nodded off while watching TV, reading a book, or sitting quietly after lunch? If you're thinking, that's me, don't panic. These symptoms don't automatically mean something is seriously wrong, but they are your body's way of saying, please pay attention. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. When you fall asleep, your heart doesn't. In fact, while you're resting, your body begins one of the most important jobs of the entire day, recovery. Imagine your body as a city. During the day, it's busy. Traffic is everywhere. People are rushing. Machines are working. Everything is moving. Then night arrives. The streets become quiet. But underneath that quiet, repair crews get to work. Roads are fixed. Power lines are inspected. Broken equipment is repaired before the morning rush begins. Your body works the same way. While you sleep, your brain organizes memories. Your immune system repairs damaged cells. Your muscles recover, hormones rebalance, blood vessels relax. Even your heart gets a chance to work a little more efficiently. Sleep isn't simply rest, it's maintenance. It's the nightly repair shift that keeps your body running. But here's the part most people never hear. What if your heart never gets that break? What if, instead of recovering, it's forced into emergency mode? Again and again and again, all while you're asleep. That's exactly what can happen with one surprisingly common condition that millions of people don't even know they have. And believe it or not, the first clue is often something people laugh about at family gatherings: snoring. Most folks think snoring is just annoying, something your spouse complains about, something your grandkids joke about during vacations. But sometimes, snoring is only the beginning of the story, because the real danger isn't always the noise. It's the silence that comes after it. And once you understand what happens during those silent moments, you'll never look at snoring the same way again. So, what actually happens during those silent moments? Why would something as ordinary as snoring ever have anything to do with your heart? Let's break it down. And don't worry, I'm going to keep this simple. Imagine you're drinking through a straw. Now imagine someone slowly pinches that straw. The opening gets smaller. You have to work harder to pull air through it. Pinch it even tighter. Eventually, nothing gets through. That's remarkably similar to what happens inside the throat of many people while they sleep. When you're awake, the muscles around your throat help keep your airway open. But once you drift off to sleep, those muscles naturally relax. For some people, that's not a problem. For others, especially those who are overweight, have a larger neck, chronic nasal congestion, or certain jaw structures, that relaxed airway becomes too narrow. Air struggles to squeeze through. That's what creates snoring. But here's where things become dangerous. Sometimes the airway doesn't just become narrow, it closes completely for 10 seconds, sometimes 20, sometimes even longer. Your chest is still trying to breathe. Your lungs are ready, but no oxygen is getting through. And that's when your brain goes into emergency mode. Think of your brain as the smoke detector in your home. It doesn't wait until the entire house is on fire. The moment it senses danger, it sounds the alarm. Your brain reacts the same way when oxygen starts to fall. It releases powerful stress hormones, adrenaline. Your heart rate suddenly jumps. Your blood pressure spikes. Your muscles tighten, just enough to reopen the airway. You gasp for air, take one deep breath, then drift right back to sleep. The entire event may last only a few seconds. Most people never remember it. But here's the scary part. For someone with untreated sleep apnea, this cycle may happen 30, 50, even 100 times in a single night. Imagine someone waking you every single minute, night after night, month after month, year after year. No wonder your body feels exhausted. But fatigue isn't the only problem. Every one of those breathing interruptions puts extra strain on your heart. Picture driving in heavy traffic. Instead of cruising smoothly, you're constantly hitting the gas, then slamming on the brakes. Gas, brake, gas, brake, for hours. Eventually, the engine begins to wear down. That's exactly what repeated surges in heart rate and blood pressure do to the cardiovascular system. Your heart never gets the peaceful recovery it was expecting. Instead, it spends the night responding to one emergency after another. Here's something that surprised many doctors years ago. Healthy blood pressure usually drops while we sleep. In medicine, it's often called nighttime dipping. Think of it as your heart finally taking a deep breath after working all day. Blood vessels relax, the heart pumps more efficiently, everything gets a chance to recover. But when breathing repeatedly stops, that healthy dip often disappears. Instead, blood pressure rises again and again and again, night after night. You may never feel it happening, but your arteries certainly do. Imagine taking a paperclip and bending it back and forth. Once, nothing happens. Twice, still fine. But keep bending it hundreds of times, eventually it weakens. Our blood vessels respond in a similar way to years of repeated stress. Tiny injuries begin to form inside the artery walls. Inflammation develops. Cholesterol is more likely to stick to those damaged areas. Over time, plaque begins to build. This doesn't happen in a week or even a month. It often takes years. That's why heart disease is sometimes called the silent killer, because while you're living your everyday life, the damage may already be quietly building beneath the surface. Now, let's talk about your brain, because your heart isn't the only organ affected. Your brain is incredibly demanding. Although it makes up only a small percentage of your body weight, it uses about 20% of the oxygen you breathe. Think about that. 1/5 of your oxygen just for your brain. While you're sleeping, your brain is organizing memories, repairing cells, clearing away waste, strengthening important connections. It's basically working the night shift. But every time oxygen drops, that work gets interrupted. Over months and years, poor quality sleep has been linked to problems with memory, focus, mood, and overall cognitive health. Now, that doesn't mean sleep apnea causes dementia. The science is much more complex than that. But researchers continue finding strong connections between healthy sleep and healthy brain aging. In other words, sleep isn't just about feeling rested tomorrow. It may also help protect the quality of your life years from now. Here's something else most people never connect: high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, irregular heart rhythms, heart failure. These conditions often travel together. Doctors sometimes call this a cluster of risk factors. One problem makes another more likely, then another, then another. It's like knocking over the first domino. Eventually, the entire row begins to fall. That's why treating only one problem while ignoring the others often isn't enough. Your body works as one connected system, not separate parts. So how do you know if your body has been trying to warn you? That's exactly what we'll cover next. Because there are 7 warning signs that millions of people ignore every day, thinking they're simply part of getting older. The truth? Some of those signs could be your body's way of saying, please don't ignore me anymore. And the third warning sign is the one that surprises almost everyone. So, what are these warning signs? Remember, none of these symptoms automatically mean you have sleep apnea or heart disease. But if several sound familiar, especially if they happen together, they're worth discussing with your healthcare provider. Your body has an incredible way of asking for help. The question is, are we listening? Have you ever looked at the clock and thought, I slept 8 hours, so why am I still exhausted? That isn't something you should simply accept as a normal part of aging. Healthy sleep isn't just about how long you sleep, it's about how well you sleep. Think about charging your phone overnight. If the charging cable keeps disconnecting every few minutes, by morning, the battery won't be full. Your body works the same way. If your sleep is constantly interrupted, even if you don't remember waking up, your body never fully recharges. That's why some people wake up already tired, not because they didn't spend enough time in bed, but because their sleep quality was poor. Another warning sign is loud snoring that keeps getting worse over time. Let's clear up a common misunderstanding. Not everyone who snores has sleep apnea. In fact, many people snore occasionally without having a serious medical condition. But loud, chronic snoring, especially when it's getting worse, isn't something to ignore. Think of snoring as your body's microphone. It's amplifying the sound of air struggling to pass through a narrowed airway. Sometimes that's harmless. Sometimes it's the first clue that something more serious is happening. That's why doctors ask about snoring during routine checkups, not because the noise itself is dangerous, but because of what it might represent. This is the warning sign that gets my attention the fastest. If your husband, your wife, or anyone who sleeps nearby says, "You stop breathing during the night," please don't brush it off. Many people laugh. Well, I'm still here. But here's the thing. You can't notice something while you're asleep. The person lying next to you often sees the problem long before you do. They hear the loud snoring. Then, everything becomes quiet. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. They start wondering, should I wake them? Then suddenly, you gasp for air, roll over, and go right back to sleep. You probably won't remember any of it, but they will. Sometimes, your spouse is the first person to recognize a potentially serious health problem. Listen to them. Another clue many people overlook is waking up with frequent morning headaches. Here's one that surprises a lot of people. Do you wake up with headaches that seem to disappear later in the day? There are many possible causes: dehydration, medication, high blood pressure, stress, but poor breathing during sleep can also contribute in some individuals. When oxygen levels repeatedly drop overnight, some people wake with dull headaches that improve after they've been awake for a while. Again, it's not proof of sleep apnea, but it's another clue that deserves attention when combined with other symptoms. Warning sign number 5. You keep falling asleep during the day. Have you ever caught yourself drifting off? Watching television, reading the newspaper, or sitting quietly after lunch? Don't ignore it. Maybe you've blamed it on getting older, but here's a better question. Why is your body so desperate for sleep? Think of sleep like paying a credit card bill. If you don't pay the full balance, the debt keeps growing. Poor quality sleep creates something researchers often call sleep debt. Eventually, your brain starts collecting what it's owed, sometimes at the worst possible moments. Here's another warning sign that's easy to miss. Blood pressure that stays high despite treatment. This one is especially important. Some people take medication exactly as prescribed. They reduce salt, they walk every day, they lose weight, yet their blood pressure still stays high. Doctors call this resistant hypertension. There are many possible reasons for it. One of them can be untreated sleep apnea. When the body repeatedly experiences drops in oxygen during the night, stress hormones continue activating the cardiovascular system. That ongoing stress may make blood pressure harder to control. It's one reason doctors sometimes recommend evaluating sleep in patients whose blood pressure remains stubbornly high. And finally, perhaps the biggest mistake of all is assuming, I'm just getting older. This might be the most dangerous sentence in today's video. We blame everything on age. Low energy, poor memory, no motivation, afternoon naps, brain fog. Now, aging absolutely changes the body. That's normal. But aging shouldn't automatically mean feeling miserable every day. Many healthy adults in their 70s and 80s stay active, energetic, and mentally sharp. So instead of assuming, ask questions. Get evaluated. Because sometimes the problem isn't age at all. Sometimes it's something that can actually be treated. Let's go back to Robert. Remember him? The retired electrician whose wife noticed he stopped breathing during the night. For years, he ignored it. He thought snoring was just something older men did. Finally, mostly to make his wife stop worrying, he agreed to have a sleep evaluation. The results surprised him. He had moderate obstructive sleep apnea. His doctor explained what was happening every night inside his body. The repeated drops in oxygen, the stress on his heart, the interrupted sleep, the blood pressure spikes. At first, he didn't love the idea of treatment. Like many people, he thought, there's no way I'm sleeping with a mask on. But after working with his sleep specialist and finding equipment that fit comfortably, something remarkable happened. Within weeks, he had more energy. His wife said the frightening pauses in breathing disappeared. He stopped falling asleep in front of the television. Even his morning mood improved. Now, treatment isn't the same for everyone. Some people benefit from lifestyle changes, others from oral devices. Some need CPAP therapy. The important message isn't that one treatment works for everyone. The message is this: you can't treat a problem you don't know you have. And that brings us to the question everyone asks. What can I actually do tonight to support a healthier heart while I sleep? The answer is simpler than you might think. And in the final part, I'll walk you through a practical 5-minute bedtime routine that cardiologists and sleep specialists often recommend, along with one mistake millions of people make just before bed without realizing it could be working against them. So, what can you actually do starting tonight? The good news is this: protecting your heart doesn't always begin with a prescription. More often, it begins with small, consistent habits, the kind that seem almost too simple to matter. But over months and years, those small habits can make a remarkable difference. Let's walk through a simple bedtime routine that takes less than 5 minutes. If possible, try to finish your last full meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Think about it this way. If someone asked you to run a marathon right before going to bed, you'd probably laugh. Yet when we eat a large, heavy meal just before lying down, our digestive system is suddenly asked to do one of its biggest jobs of the day. Instead of resting, your body is working overtime. Digestion increases, blood sugar rises, your stomach stays active. For some people, acid reflux becomes more likely, and reflux itself can make nighttime breathing worse. If you're genuinely hungry later in the evening, choose something light that fits your doctor's recommendations. Sometimes less really is more. I ask you something? What's the very last thing you see before closing your eyes? Your spouse? The ceiling? Or your phone? For many of us, it's the phone. One more email, one more headline, one more video, one more scroll. Then suddenly, it's midnight. The problem isn't only the screen, it's the stimulation. Your brain stays alert, your nervous system keeps working. Instead, create a 30-minute quiet zone. Read a few pages of a book, listen to calming music, pray, stretch gently, or simply enjoy the silence. Your heart loves calm evenings. Your brain does too. Sometimes the first person to recognize a sleep problem isn't your doctor, it's your spouse. If someone tells you, you stopped breathing last night, believe them. If they say, your snoring keeps getting worse, don't joke about it. Ask questions. Because here's something I've learned over the years. The people who love us often notice changes before we do. They see the warning signs. Sometimes long before we feel them. Here's a simple habit that saves lives. Know your blood pressure. Know your cholesterol. Know your blood sugar. Think of these numbers like the dashboard in your car. You wouldn't ignore the oil warning light for months. Your body deserves the same attention. Many people discover problems early simply because they checked. Knowledge isn't something to fear. It's something that gives you options. If you wake up gasping, if you're exhausted every morning, if your blood pressure remains difficult to control, or if someone regularly notices pauses in your breathing, please don't keep putting off that conversation with your doctor. Modern sleep studies are much easier than many people imagine. Some can even be done in your own home. And if obstructive sleep apnea is diagnosed, there are effective treatments available. Not every treatment is right for every person. That's why getting properly evaluated matters. Let's go back to where we started. Michael thought he was fine. Robert thought snoring was just part of getting older. Neither believed sleep could tell such an important story. But here's what today's video is really about. It's not about fear. It's about awareness. Your body is incredibly intelligent. It usually doesn't surprise you with serious illness. It gives clues, little clues, repeated clues, whispers. The question is, will we listen? Imagine yourself 10 years from now. You're sitting outside on a warm summer evening. Your grandchildren are running through the yard. Someone calls your name. You smile. You stand up. You walk over. You're healthy enough to enjoy the moment. That's what all of this is about. Not simply adding years to life, but adding life to your years. The choices you make tonight can help shape the mornings you'll wake up to tomorrow, and that's worth protecting. If you found this video helpful, please share it with someone you care about. Your husband, your wife, your parents, your brother, your sister, or that friend who always jokes about snoring. You never know. One conversation, one doctor's appointment, one small lifestyle change could make a bigger difference than anyone realizes. And if you're new here, welcome to The Calming Cure. Every week, we share evidence-based health tips designed to help you stay active, independent, and healthy as you age. If that's the kind of content you're looking for, be sure to subscribe. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Do you wake up feeling refreshed? Or do you still feel tired no matter how long you sleep? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read as many of them as I can. Until next time, sleep well. Take care of your heart. Take care of yourself. And remember, the healthiest tomorrow begins with the choices you make tonight. We'll see you in the next video.